These days, the term Bullshido is fairly common and even widely recognized. While it may sound like a term meant to intentionally insult, it can often be a noble attempt, just not always expressed well, to expose false martial arts which encourage a lack of critical thinking and sometimes even cause potential danger to the lives of its practitioners and their loved ones, making themselves believe that they are capable of defending themselves and others in an actual self-defense situation. Nevertheless, there are still many martial arts which could be categorized as Bullshido and continue to profit from their false claims without taking responsibility. In order to bring more awareness to the subject and to save people from falling into the wrong hands, in this brief martial arts video, we will take a closer look at what exactly defines a martial arts as a Bullshido and which practices could be considered such, so that present and future practitioners could be careful enough in choosing them. To begin with, let us have a detailed look at how to define and pinpoint a Bullshido practice. The term Bullshido, as explained by Urban Dictionary, is a martial arts instruction that is fraudulent, inept, or otherwise not worth trusting. This is actually a very good description, yet to fully understand it, we will further break it down to distinguish a trustworthy practice from a Bullshido one. Thus, let us break down this definition. A martial art which is fraudulent. Part of Bullshido culture consists of martial arts and its representatives who make intentional, false claims that their martial art will offer great value to attract more students and to increase their revenue. Most of the times, this suggested value consists of promising an effective set of self-defense skills, while they are actually not capable of delivering it. Places who use this strategy are also sometimes referred to as mugdojos. Interestingly enough, in my experience, most Bullshido masters are actually not aware of their lack of ability to deliver their promise of an actual self-defense system, and they end up believing their false claims themselves. That brings me to the second part of the Bullshido definition. A martial art which is inept or otherwise not trustworthy. As mentioned before, some martial arts instructors in schools actually believe that they are capable of offering an effective set of self-defense skills, while actually that is far from reality. While they do not intentionally make these claims just for the sake of extra profit, they still have a high confidence in their promise and oftentimes have no trouble offering their quote-unquote teachings to others. Bearing this in mind, I want to point out is that if a martial arts school is not promising the most effective set of self-defense skills and officially addresses its lacks in this realm, such a practice should not be called Bullshido. It is primarily when the promise of effective self-defense is made and the lacks of the system or instructor are not addressed. That is when a practice falls into the category of Bullshido. Unfortunately, that is oftentimes the case. One more thing that is important to answer before starting to call out specific Bullshido martial arts is to identify what an effective system of self-defense is and what it consists of. While many martial arts techniques appear realistic during training, oftentimes they are learned with a non-resisting or non-alive attacker who is either majorly cooperative or attacks with very low intensity and unpredictability. As addressed by the instructors of the most effective self-defense systems, real setting self-defense situations are very different from that of training in a dojo. Unless we get used to high levels of pressure, resistance, and unpredictability during our training, there is a big chance we will panic in real-life setting because that is what we will become exposed to. And most techniques that we learned in a completely safe environment, oftentimes with a cooperative partner, won't work. Also, a real self-defense situation offers many more components such as unusual terrain, a storm of internal chemistry, and familiar and hidden weapons, and on top of that all, an attacker who by no means wants to cooperate. Thus, any system which claims to be an effective system of self-defense yet refuses to do pressure testing in high-level intensity and bases itself on cooperative and repetitive training or fails to address its limitations should not have the right to claim itself as an effective self-defense system. Even combat sports have its lacking sides in terms of self-defense, primarily because it consists of specific rules or limitations to techniques such as specific strikes, kicks, or takedowns, to which a self-defense situation is not limited to. Yet while practices such as judo, MMA, BJJ, boxing, kickboxing, or Muay Thai are not based on self-defense entirely, their methods of dealing with a resisting opponent get a person much more ready to deal with a real attacker far more than a practice which offers no pressure testing at all or a very limited and constricted one. Also, these practices more often than not are aware of their lacks in their system and oftentimes directly addresses them. For these reasons, the previously mentioned martial arts and similar practice to it normally does not fall into the category of Bullshido. Having all these points in mind, we're ready to look at martial arts and practices which may have a lack of understanding in what they're promising and how to deliver it, thus encouraging a delusional and even dangerous mindset. Aikido. Of course, I will start with Aikido. It is a martial art in which I personally invested 14 years of devoted training, and it is also the martial art which is most oftentimes connected with the word Bullshido. While many Aikido schools do consider Aikido to be a practice of self-improvement primarily, that doesn't stop a lot of Aikido practitioners to still claim and believe that their system is an effective self-defense practice. Unfortunately, in reality, it is one of the most cooperative and static martial arts out there, where the attacker almost fully submits to the applied techniques, and most techniques start from very uncommon attacks in a self-defense situation. Even its form of pressure testing called randori consists mainly of people offering prearranged attacks and easily submit themselves to each applied technique. Sistema. While many believe Sistema to be an effective self-defense system, because unlike Aikido, it has more effective attacks in its curriculum and more believable techniques, in the end, it unfortunately suffers from the similar conditions to Aikido. Its training methods are very much complacency-based, and while they sound effective in theory, oftentimes it does not reach the level of pressure testing with a live, fully resisting opponent. It also oftentimes falls down into the Bullshido category because it seems to fail to address these lacks in a major, honest way, ignoring the criticism that it is offered to by many. Taekwondo. The internet is packed with stories of former Taekwondo practitioners who became disillusioned by their martial art after exposing themselves to other, more effective practices. It is also infamous for giving out black belts too easily, and its point sparring system can give a false sense of confidence, which can make one believe that he has sufficient self-defense skills, unless this low-intensity level form of live drilling is properly addressed. While TKD can be made effective with proper training, unfortunately, many of its schools fall into the Bullshido and even Magdojo category. Ninjutsu. I won't spend much time here because if Taekwondo and Sistema are in trouble, what can you expect out of Ninjutsu? The reason it is easy to call it Bullshido is because not only it has a lack of pressure testing and live drilling, most ninjutsu practitioners train what they consider deadly techniques and have full faith in them, while all they do is practice them with a cooperative partner and learn them primarily in theory. Wing Chun. Wing Chun is the harder ones to claim as Bullshido, yet the more time goes on, the more people place it into this category. While it has punches, kicks, and various deflections, it oftentimes avoids full pressure testing and limits itself to very specific moves, lacking openness to more contemporary attacks. Also, if you will regard videos where a pure Wing Chun practitioner tries to fight a combat sports practitioner, you will see how their ideas developed in training with a cooperative partner soon fail, and they often fall back to regular fighting skills more akin to poor boxing or kickboxing. As previously mentioned, many Wing Chun schools do not address this gap between real fighting, self-defense, and claim that their coordinated training is a high-efficiency form of self-defense. That is primarily why Wing Chun has trouble staying out of the realm of Bullshido. Krav Maga. Even a more harder one to point out as Bullshido, unfortunately it is called so by a fair amount of people. This is not to say that Krav Maga is the worst practice as a means of self-defense, yet similar to Sistema, it fails to address its lacking sides and oftentimes promotes itself as the ultimate form of self-defense. While it boasts itself to rely on unconventional to combat sports attacks, such as drawing or eye attacks, most of its training methods are still based on performing prearranged techniques with a cooperative partner, and less often a lot of its techniques are tested with full pressure testing. Failing to address this lacking side of their training, Krav Maga is often placed by many in the Bullshido category. Other worth mentioning. Even karate can fall into the lines of Bullshido if it does not offer full contact sparring or live drilling, while at the same time claiming to be a highly effective self-defense system. Same goes to Hapkido schools, various Kung Fu styles, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, and other similar, less known styles which are focusing on the traditional, mostly cooperative aspect of its training, yet try to sell themselves as an effective self-defense curriculum. As you can see, Bullshido is not just about the martial art itself or its training methods, it is about how it presents itself and what it promises to offer. As long as most martial arts embrace their limits and are honest about them, many of them should be able to cast off the title of Bullshido. Unfortunately, a lot of martial arts schools continue to make claims of effectiveness and are left unchecked, further encouraging people's delusional thinking. While no art and practice is perfect and complete, we should always maintain our critical thinking on high alert when choosing a practice for something as important as self-defense. Hopefully this video gave you a chance to have a better understanding how to recognize a practice which could be considered Bullshido, and you will make the right choice when the time comes. Do you agree with this list and criteria for Bullshido martial arts? Did I miss some practices that should be on the list? Let me know in the comments. Also, remember to share this video to further increase the awareness of to-be and even current practitioners of various martial arts to successfully evolve and grow the world of martial arts and self-defense in a positive manner. And last of all, subscribe if you want more videos like this one. This was Rocus Leo, and I'll see you on the virtual map again soon.